All right, friendos, prepare the three-finger salute action because today we're asking the internets, what is your funniest dungeonmaster.exe has crashed moment? Part 1. I'm Dave Makes Noises. Let's jump right into it. Now's probably a good time to announce that we are doing a fatty boom batty dice giveaway with our friends over at Easy Roller Dice Company. Rip asked me to handpick $180 worth of mad luxurious dice and accessories that I would want for myself, and so that's what I did. One winner takes the whole pot, so click the link in the description below or in the pinned comments, follow us on Twitch and Twitter, and go visit EasyRollerDice.com for your chance to get your hands on Rip Daddy's brimming stimulus package, courtesy of Ripper himself and our sweet friends over at Easy Roller Dice Company. Mine usually involve my players making horrible puns, but at one point they decided that on my modern game, think if Faerun hit the information age, all 6 of them chose to make rogues. Then they introduced their characters calmly and professionally, one by one. They never stay calm or professional. By the 3rd character, I was groaning. By the 4th, I was sobbing. By the 6th, I was trying to figure out how my game of 6 professional Monster Control squad members had turned into a bad reenactment of Ocean's 11. Little backstory, the party had just defeated an optional boss to acquire a special halberd with ice magic for the paladin. Turns out it's the sister to the barbarian's great axe, another magical weapon, and they have a bro moment where they toast with their blade and power sparked between them and sent them both flying. When fighting a terrifying boss that almost killed them, the barbarian told the paladin to hand him his halberd. Cue the barbarian thrusting with both weapons into the monster's jaw and touching them together, and looked to the DM, me. I told them I had to take a moment from the surprise of their ingenuity before rolling a fireball's worth of damage if the barbarian made a strength save with disadvantage. He got an unnatural 20 and a 19. I said fine. Power begins to build and you can feel the blast tearing at your muscles as the shockwave throws you back and blows the monster's jaw clean off, disabling its breath weapon. I'm running a game for 5 players which destroyed one of the big bad evil guy's strongest minions in the last session. This intelligent half-monster, half-man was CR21, and they were level 11. To keep it short, the minion introduced himself and had a chat with the party. They were on their way to see their loved ones, and he wanted to give them a bit of time. The chat ends, and he turns to go. The divination wizard casts Flesh to Stone, restraining the enemy. The dwarf barbarian fighter and assassin rogue fighter use their second winds and just beat this dude into the fucking ground. When he finally frees himself from Flesh to Stone, he'd lost 2/3 of his hit points. With a few attacks, he downs 2 party members, and the dwarf barbarian grapples him and manages through multiple rolls to pin him to the ground. The paladin finishes the job by beheading the guy. I was running a 5th edition campaign set in the Mass Effect universe using a homebrew rule set expansion, Massive Effect 5e from N7 World. One of my players was playing an assassin, but his character was a bit weird, for one. He started off with a massive amount of credits because he was actually paid by the Systems Alliance to join this mission. Not because he was actually good at his job, but because another organization had paid him to kill one of the party members, and the Systems Alliance essentially bought his contract to keep that party member alive. Although they did fake his death, so no one knew about the arrangement, which was a pretty fun way to introduce his character, lol. This character decided that a good use for that money was to buy $50,000 worth of Twinkies. We did the math and estimated that he bought 800 pounds of Twinkies, which he then announced he was going to take on the ship with him. After a few moments of blue screening, I finally said, yeah, there's no way in hell they're letting you take 800 pounds of anything on a spaceship designed for a crew of 20 people, dude. Ain't happening. Later in the campaign, he left an open bottle of poison out. Just left it, sitting out on a table next to a wine glass with a little note that said, "Don't touch," on a spaceship with a crew of people who already didn't trust him because his introduction to the group was killing one of their friends. So the captain of the ship had him locked up in his room when they arrived at Gagarin Station to refuel the ship and resupply. While he was confined to his room on the station, this player says, "That's fine, he'll just go out the window." Everyone went silent for a few moments. I finally spoke up and said, "So you want to go out the window of a space station in space without a suit? Okay, go ahead and roll me a new character, I guess." After everyone calmed down from laughing hysterically at his reaction once he remembered they were currently on a space station, I explained that the moment he tried to break the window, metal shutters came down to seal off the windows, and his room was now sealed off from the station until someone could go outside and confirm he didn't breach atmospheric containment and possibly replace the window, which meant he might suffocate if they took too long as he wasn't getting oxygen from the station anymore. He didn't die, but it was nice to make sure his character was locked away for a session without doing something random and blue screen of death generating, lol. We were in the middle of a pretty standard session, to the point where I can't recall what we were doing because what happened eclipsed it. In the middle of describing a scene, the DM turns to our Barbarians player and stops. He stares at the player with the most vacant expression and says, "I can't remember your name." Not the Barbarian's name, the name of the player. The one he's been playing with for a year at this point. He's in the first stage of a mental breakdown as he stands up, hands on head, failing to come up with his friend's name. Meanwhile, as he's having this psychological crisis, us at the table are doing two things: laughing hysterically and giving him no help whatsoever. It takes a good 5 minutes and a trip outside for some fresh air between panicked fits of insane laughter before he finally screams, "Garrett!" To this day, anytime he can't remember something's name, we are quick with a snide reminder of this moment where his brain completely blue-screened. I think our group crashed our DM last session. We were in a room that was flooding and our party in our infinite wisdom decided to follow the solar that was leaving via dimension door. Osiris and Mary Bloodthorn used Misty Step to teleport into the solar's dimension door. I used Soulblade's psychic teleportation to teleport into the door. Fevrock threw Dave into the door and then ran in. When we failed the rolls that would let us go through with the solar and instead ended up outside of reality, everyone but me managed to teleport back into reality, but Valakas, my character, ended up stuck there because he's more affected by the place, so was rolling with disadvantage. Alright, so my party was venturing through some weird mazy Fey forest place and our DM was periodically rolling for stuff. He kept getting one extremely specific result: 100 on D100 and a 2 on 1D4, which gave us extremely rare gold dragon scales that could frighten evil creatures and cast spells. He rolled like 12 of those in total that night, even when he kept switching between his 5 sets of dice. At one point, he was so mad he legit got up and left for a bit. Naturally, we were all joking about how we broke the DM. The thing with these scales is they can fuse together, giving us even more powerful spells. By the end of the session, we, a level 3 party, could cast 5th level spells. TLDR, my party's warlock seduced a ghost and had a ghastly time with her. So, my players were doing a Session 0/1 campaign into a fledgling necromancer's lair for their hometown, and since this was their first time playing, and my first time DMing, I wasn't too scared about what they would do. After all, how much damage could a group of 10th graders really do? Cue the ghost. You see, the necromancer created a ghost to keep people at bay. I had to scale down its stats and attacks, or else they definitely would have died, and it took the form of a ghostly woman. The warlock looks across the table and at everyone at the table and said, "I roll to seduce the hot ghost." I sighed and said sure, but that the chances of that happening were really low. That's when the entire party joined in to help, with the bard playing music to set the mood, the wizard using prestidigitation to create mood lighting, the rogue unpacking an entire meal he stole from the local tavern, and the barbarian kept guard from any other baddies that would interrupt the ritual. Then the warlock rolled a nat 20. 10 minutes later, he was having a hell of a time with this ghost. It was at this point where I realized this: these are the only people I can play D&D with in this small town, and I was going to have to deal with this BS every couple weeks for the rest of my DMing career. Our DM at the time had set an ambush for some characters to get us into the next plot hook. We were around level 2, so our threat level wasn't very high. My shady, edgy, and unfriendly dwarf rogue was traveling with our equally shady and untrustworthy changeling bard. Both characters were from a criminal port city, with my rogue being part of a crime syndicate before leaving due to personal reason, and the bard had an innocent man murdered for a crime he committed. Anyway, the two of us walk into this alley and are told to make dex saves. I roll a 26, the highest you can roll at level 2 without a nat 20, and I fail. So does the bard. We are tackled and pinned to the ground by about a dozen or so NPCs in masks. They began tying us up, and as they did, the bard cast Thunderclap. Everyone failed the save, even me. All the NPCs and my rogue went flying, and he managed to untie me. As we stood up and assumed fighting positions, Our DM walked out of the room. Then there was the time our same DM was running Lost Mines of Phandelver. We were in a dungeon, and there was a massive room where the boss fight was supposed to take place. On one side of the entrance in the outside hallway was a 5-foot alcove. We set up our Tempest Domain Cleric on one side of the doorway, and our Dwarf Fighter on the other. We were level 4. Our Tempest Domain Cleric cast Spiritual Weapon and began beating down the boss from about 30 feet away. Our Dwarf Fighter was making sure no enemies made it through the door with his trusty Sentinel feat. Our Tiefling Ranger was popping in and out of the doorway, popping shots. And my Drow Bard was casting Vicious Mockery at the boss while keeping flanking enemies at bay. Yeah, he left the room that time too. Salutations, my sweet storytellers, and thank you for steering your senses towards this video until the very end. If DungeonMaster.exe has crashed on your system before, please share the system log file in the comments below. If you have another story you'd like to share with us, please share it on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper, where we are constantly skimming for stories to spotlight. As well, if you join us on Sunday for our storytelling streams, you can request that we narrate your story live. As well, if you'd like to join us for our weekly D&D campaign, come say what's up on Saturdays over at Fire and Dice. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group, please check out Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server, where over 3,000 gamers are looking to party up with you. And of course, if you find yourself curious about the noises Dave makes, you can find me, Dave Makes Noises, on TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. I hope this week that you take a step back and remember to breathe. Thank you so much again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s, and ding that dong to join the early squad and flex your punctuality on all the non-believers. We love you so much here at Rip Daddy's house. Have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next time.